The Olympic Games used to represent possibility. For billions of people around the world, the Olympics meant something specific. A moment when ordinary nations could compete on equal footing with powerhouses, when athletes from small countries could stand alongside the world's biggest stars, when young people everywhere could watch their country's representatives and believe their own dreams were possible. But something fundamental has changed, and the transformation is happening so quietly that most people haven't noticed. The Olympics are still being held, athletes are still competing, records are still being broken, ceremonies are still spectacular, but the event itself is becoming increasingly inaccessible to the very people who made it meaningful. The average cost of attending Olympic Games has exploded, not gradually, dramatically. In recent years, ticket prices have reached levels that would have seemed impossible a generation ago. Entry to opening ceremonies now costs thousands of dollars. Individual events that once cost $50 now cost hundreds, premium seating reaches thousands. And this isn't just about expensive tickets. Travel costs have surged, accommodation in host cities has become prohibitively expensive. Food, transportation, merchandise, everything connected to attending the Olympics has become luxury pricing. The result is visible in ticket sales data. Entire sections of Olympic venues sit empty because ordinary people cannot afford to fill them. Host cities report old inventory days before events. Major competitions lack the atmosphere they once had because the people who traditionally filled stadiums, ordinary sports fans, passionate supporters, young people experiencing the Olympics for the first time can no longer afford to be there. This matters more than it might seem, because the Olympics were never just about what happened inside stadiums. The Olympics were about the global community gathering together, rich and poor, developed and developing nations, different cultures coming together through sport. The idea that for a brief moment, the entire world could unite around athletic achievement. But if the only people who can afford to attend are wealthy corporate guests, wealthy tourists, and privileged audiences, something essential is lost. The Olympics stops being a global event and becomes an exclusive experience. Nobody planned this. International Olympic Committee officials didn't wake up one day and decide to price out ordinary people. Instead, it happened through a series of logical decisions that each made sense individually but collectively created a crisis. The first decision was expansion. More events, more venues, more infrastructure, bigger ceremonies, longer opening celebrations. Each of these required more investment. Host cities needed to build or renovate stadiums, they needed to upgrade transportation, they needed to increase security. The costs became enormous, cities spent billions preparing for the games. The second decision was recovery. If cities were spending billions, they needed revenue to offset those costs. That revenue would come from ticket sales, sponsorships, and broadcasting rights. But broadcasting rights were already locked in at fixed rates. Sponsorships were already negotiated, so the variable that could be increased was ticket prices. The third decision was market positioning. Olympics organizers believed that because demand was high, prices could be high. People wanted to attend the Olympics. That desire was real. That desire could be exploited through scarcity pricing, limited tickets available, high demand, therefore high prices were justified. Each decision made economic sense. Together, they created an event that ordinary people could no longer afford to attend. But here is where it becomes a systemic crisis, because the Olympics depend on something that money alone cannot purchase: atmosphere, passion, the energy of crowds who care deeply about the sport. That energy comes from supporters who have sacrificed to be there, who saved money for years, who traveled across the world despite financial hardship, who felt like they belonged at the world's greatest sporting event. When those people disappear, the Olympics loses something irreplaceable. The world's best athletes still perform. The most impressive athletic achievements still happen. But the emotional experience fundamentally changes. An Olympic stadium without passionate fans feels different. It feels hollow, it feels corporate. And that hollowness spreads because once ordinary people realize they cannot afford to attend, they stop trying, they stop watching, they stop caring in the same way. The Olympics shift from being something that feels like it belongs to everyone to something that feels like it belongs to corporations, the wealthy, and the International Olympic Committee. The economics of this are devastating for the Olympic movement long term, because the Olympics survive on a specific type of capital, emotional capital. People around the world care about the Olympics because they feel connected to the event. They feel like it represents something bigger than sport, something about human unity and human potential. But if the Olympics become too expensive for regular people to attend or feel connected to, that emotional capital erodes, and emotional capital is exactly the thing the Olympics cannot rebuild through marketing or sponsorship money. Consider what this means for future host cities. When the Olympics come to a city, that city makes enormous investments. The city government borrows money, local taxes increase, public resources get redirected to Olympic infrastructure. The city takes on debt with the assumption that the Olympics will be economically beneficial. That assumption depends on broad public support, on citizens feeling like the Olympics belong to them, on the population embracing the Games as a positive force for their city. But if those citizens cannot afford to attend, if they see the Olympics as an event being built for outside wealth rather than for them, if they watch their tax dollars fund stadiums they cannot afford to visit, then public support collapses, resentment builds, the Olympics stop feeling like a celebration and start feeling like an extraction. This is already happening in real time. Multiple host cities have faced massive public backlash. Citizens protesting that the Olympics were being funded by public money while being restricted to wealthy spectators. Governments pledging that future Olympics would be more inclusive. But the economic pressures remain, prices still climb. Affordability still declines. And this creates an impossible cycle. Cities cannot afford to host the Olympics at reasonable cost, so they raise prices. When they raise prices, fewer ordinary people can attend. When fewer ordinary people attend, the atmosphere suffers. When the atmosphere suffers, the Olympics feel less special. When the Olympics feel less special, cities become less willing to host. This is the death spiral that no amount of Olympic philosophy can prevent. Because the Olympics have always been sustained by a specific belief. The belief that the Olympics matter to ordinary people, that ordinary people can participate, that ordinary people can be part of something bigger than themselves, but that belief is being tested like never before, because every 4 years another host city announces Olympic ticket prices, and every 4 years those prices surprise people with how expensive they are, and every 4 years a new generation of young people learns that the Olympics are not for them. This is not about entitlement. This is not about people wanting something for free. This is about the Olympics having fundamentally changed what they represent. The Olympics used to be expensive in absolute terms but accessible relative to average income. A person could save money and attend with sacrifice and planning. Attendance was possible. Now the Olympics are expensive both in absolute terms and relative to income. Even with significant sacrifice, attendance is beyond the reach of most people. The International Olympic Committee still uses the language of inclusion. The rhetoric around Olympic Games still emphasizes global unity and shared human values. But the pricing tells a different story. The pricing reveals what the Olympics actually prioritize: revenue, corporate partnerships, exclusive experiences for wealthy guests. The ordinary fan is no longer the priority. The ordinary fan is no longer the audience. And that matters because the Olympics were never just about athletic achievement. The Olympics were about spectacle, about inspiring people, about making people believe that greatness was possible. That belief was generated by witnessing athletes at their peak while sitting in a stadium full of people from around the world, all united by the same love of sport. But if that stadium is only filled with wealthy corporate guests, if the people who should be inspired are watching from home because they cannot afford to be there, then the Olympics lose their transformative power. They become just another entertainment product. Expensive, exclusive, reserved for the wealthy. This is the real crisis facing the Olympic movement. Not attendance numbers alone. Attendance numbers are important, but they measure the symptom, not the disease. The disease is that the Olympics have stopped being an event that belongs to humanity and have become an event that belongs to capital. And once that transformation is complete, once the Olympics become just another luxury experience, something irreplaceable is lost. Not just for fans, for the athletes themselves. Because athletes perform differently when they feel the energy of a passionate crowd, when they know they are competing in front of people who made extraordinary sacrifices to be there. That energy fuels performance, that energy creates greatness. But if the crowd consists primarily of wealthy people attending for corporate reasons, if the energy is muted and corporate rather than passionate and human, then something fundamental changes about the competition itself. The athletes still compete at the highest level, but the moment itself loses resonance. The achievement feels smaller. In the coming years, the Olympics will continue. More games will be held, more cities will host, more records will be broken. But the question that haunts the Olympic movement will remain unanswered. For whom do the Olympics truly exist anymore? For the athletes? For the global audience? For the host cities? Or for the corporations, sponsors, and wealthy individuals who can afford to purchase access to the world's most exclusive sporting event? Because right now, the pricing suggests the answer is clear, and that answer is changing what the Olympics mean to billions of people around the world.